Okay, so now that we've done some basic Flexbox stuff and now that we've done some special child combinator and sibling selector stuff, let's do something that's a much more challenging Flexbox layout. So I'm going to take a peek over here just to show you kind of where we might be going with this. So we're going to be doing a lot of refactoring if you follow along with this, where you are essentially taking the basic same structure, but you're going to be doing a few things a little bit differently so that you can have some kind of effects like this where uh, no matter what you hover over, you've got this sort of section that is a full row, right? That's not just the individual divs. So if we were to take a look at the way that this is structured, this where it says number 3, that's a div. Where it says number 1, that's a div. Where we have an image, that is an image inside of a div, right? And so we still have that same kind of wrapping, cascading wrapping behavior. But what's interesting is that whenever I hover over any part of that row, the entire row makes a change. So I want to show you how you can think about doing something like that because it is a little bit more complex, right? And it's not just dealing with Flexbox, but it's also dealing with uh, relative and absolute positioning with anchor tags and stuff too. Okay, and so some of this will harken back to what we did, you know, maybe with some floated galleries and things like that, where we had hover states for the thumbnails, right? So let's go back and let's take a look at what we've got right now. So if you are back where we left off with Flexbox 4, the special child and sibling selectors, what I want you to do is go ahead and make a new fork of that. And then we're going to edit the name and we're going to save it as, let's see, Flexbox 5, and we'll say Flex Layout Challenge or something like that. Okay. All right. So, and then go ahead and save that. Now, first thing, if you wanted to look back at our example here, first thing that we did is if you were to take a peek at this, right, then you'll notice that each of these things is in halves, right? So we've got a div over here that's half, and a div over here that's half, and then a div over here that's half, and a div over, and so on and so on and so on. And so unlike our other example that we left off with, right, where we just have everything kind of resizing automatically, we're going to go ahead and be more specific, and you'll see how flexible the Flexbox actually is, right? And so let's just go ahead and let's get rid of some stuff that we did before. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find, actually, first of all, I'm going to collapse my columns. That's the first thing I'll do. And then I'm going to also go down and I'm going to get rid of where it says row and then every direct descendant or direct child of the row is going to have a margin. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to comment that margin out so that it collapses that margin that was there. Okay. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to uncomment where it says width, and I'm going to change that from 33 whatever percent and change it to 50%. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. And then you'll notice that some of the stuff doesn't actually end up still behaving the way that I would expect it to. And so we might want to address some of the things that we had done before, like for instance, we had this select class where we had a width of 65%. We can knock that out, and that was the problem. And if you wanted to leave that select like that, you could, and then just go up here to the HTML and you can just remove the select class right off of here. Let's just take that off. And then we'll take it also off of this one right there as well. Okay, and so for right now we can just remove that. All right, that's one option. The other thing, as I said before, is that you could just remove the width off of it as well, and that would be okay. So, but for right now, let's just for the moment, let's just go ahead and I'm going to comment out all of the select stuff. All right, and then we might want to revisit some of that and use it again. But for right now, let's just go ahead and comment that out. Okay, and the other thing that you'll notice if you go back over there is let's let's jump back over here, is that we've got an image on every even div, basically, like on every other div. And then we also have some stuff, some different lorem ipsum in each of these other things. And you'll also see, like I went ahead and I left the numbering system so that you could still count the boxes. So this is 0, 1, and this would have been 0, 2, and then 0, 3 is here, and this would have been 0, 4, and so on. Ideally, if these were actually units, like, you know, this text went with this picture, this would be 0, 1, and then the next one would be 0, 2, and so on, if you were counting them as units. But I just, you know, just for clarity so that you understand why I did that, I did it so you could keep counting, and you could go back later and actually fix that. But so let's go ahead and do this where we take some pictures, and since I'm using CodePen, I'm just going to grab some stuff out of CodePen, and I'm going to put it in the divs, and I'm going to grab some lorem ipsum. So let's jump back over there, and let's go ahead and do that. Okay, and we'll worry about the colors later, because you'll notice right now that we're at 50%, this looks like one big long column of blue. All right, so we'll deal with that later. Right now, let's go into the HTML and let's figure some of this stuff out. Okay, so if I go into this first one, this is a little bit long. This lorem ipsum is a bit long, and so what I think I'll do instead is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to truncate some of it. So I'll just, in fact, I'll cut this. Well, actually, you know what I'll do? I'm going to take this paragraph. All right, let's take this whole paragraph. I'll copy that. And then I'm just going to paste it in each one, and I'll just modify it a little bit. All right, so I'm not going to put it in this second one, because that second one is the place. Here, let's just collapse all these, and then it might be a little bit easier to see what it is that we're supposed to be doing. All right, so let's collapse all of these divs. Okay, and then I'm gonna open up all of the ones that I want to put text in, right? So I'll open this one. That one has something in it, so I'll close it back up. That means I need to come 2 down, and I'll go ahead and I'll drop down this H2, and that gives me a place to paste that text in. And let's just get rid of some of the lorem ipsum, and yeah, let's just do that like this. Okay, so it's a little bit shorter, because I think that if I were actually trying to say something about a picture, it would just be a little blurb. It wouldn't be a big long piece of text based on this general layout. So let's go and open this one up. All right, and then we'll pop this in here again. And I'll try to get a different sentence this time. Maybe that. Again, we'll come down a couple of more. Do the same thing. And let's change it up a little bit. Let's do something where we I guess actually it's not that different. We'll leave this middle sentence like that. And this will be the last one right here that we're going to put the text in. And we'll paste this, and let's just kind of combine some sentences here. It's all dummy text anyway, right? And then I'll just take some other stuff out. Okay. And so now we've got text, a little bit of text in each one. Oh, and then this number 6, this is one that was left over. So let's go and look at that one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go ahead and I'm going to just completely remove that. And in fact, I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this H2, because that's where an image is going to go. All right. So we'll put an image in there, and you'll see that now it's gone. Okay. So, and we can do that for each other one, right? So we can come in here and we can just drop this down, and I'll just remove the space where the image is going to go. And then we'll come down to this one, same thing. All right, we'll just leave a spot for it. Again, that one's already done. This one, same thing. And this last one. Okay, so So basically I'm going to be adding some pictures here, and the way that you can do that is you can just go into the assets, and then I'm going to go look for photos, and you can just do it this way where it just pops up and you can grab some pictures. I'm going to recommend that you try to grab vertical pictures, vertically oriented ones, because they're going to work a little bit better for you, um, so that for a longer time they're going to actually show a little bit more on the screen. So you might want to take, one of these things. I'll go ahead and I'll grab something. Let's just click here, and I'm going to say copy as a small IMG tag. So let's do that first. All right, so I'll close that, and then it's come up to the first one, and I'm going to place it right here inside of that div. And you see it pops up right here, and you'll notice that it's doing something a little wonky. It's not scaling, and that's because we need to actually tell it to scale. So I think I'll go ahead and do that right now, so that as I put them in, they don't look totally bizarre. So, and you could put the large version in, but the large version is going to be gigantic, and it might take your page a really long time to load. So for right now, I'm going to put the small picture in. If you wanted to put a larger picture so that you know that it would scale really well, then that's fine. But let's go ahead in the CSS before we go much further, and let's figure out where we need to make that change for the image. Okay, so I'm actually going to do it right after I've got my selector that is for every, the one that's choosing all of the direct children of the row. So let's go ahead and we'll do dot row, so that it'll be any image that's inside of a row. We'll do dot row img, okay, and we'll say width is 100%, and so that automatically will scale. But look what's happening now. We still have padding, and if you want that image to not have any padding, then what's going to happen, it's not actually the image that has the padding, it's the div. So actually, let's take care of that a little bit later. For right now, let's just go ahead and get these things to scale properly. And if you want, you can also tell this image to be a display of block. And you might not recognize what that does right now, but what it ultimately is going to do is it's ultimately going to keep it from having like a little space at the bottom whenever it's complete. And later I can uncomment that, or excuse me, I can comment it and uncomment it to toggle it on and off and show it to you. But I already know that that's an issue with images, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it like as display block like that. All right, so now as I go and I put all the rest of my images in, it'll work better. Oh, and I also want to go ahead and I want to shorten up this text in the very first panel here because it's a little bit too long. So let's just go ahead and dump all of that extra stuff and let's just stick with the one sentence. Okay, so let's go in and let's add our other pictures. So instead of making you watch me go find pictures, I'm just going to put them in and then come right back. And then you do the same. Okay, I went ahead and I did it, and I've got pictures all in these alternating, you can see here I've got them in alternating divs, okay, and that they're reflected right there. Okay, so now that I've got my lorem ipsum and my my pictures all squared away, the next thing I want to probably go ahead and address is the background color problem. So if I'm thinking of these things as a unit, I would want the first row visible, what I would interpret as a row, to be maybe blue, and then maybe the next one to be orange or whatever. So let's go ahead and address that. I'm going to go into the CSS, and we're going to have to sort of undo some of the things that we did. And the first thing that I'm going to suggest that you do is where I've got these background colors, I'm going to suggest that for a moment we just comment that out so that the colors all go away. And the next thing I'm going to suggest is that we go ahead and all right, so we have a unique challenge, right? So it was easy whenever we were doing evens and odds because there's just something that's built in for nth child that just says nth child even, nth child odd, that will work like that. But it's a little bit more difficult whenever we have to sort of count you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, or whatever, and then change like every fourth one or every third one or whatever like that. So, and that's kind of what we're going to have to do. So let's do something where we just start with a basic background color for the entire, for all of these divs, right? And so we're going to do that where we have this selector that is targeting all direct children of section. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to just use that. I'm going to paste in that orange number. All right. And so right now we've got everything that with an orange background. So if we look at what we had here with this section designator on line 19, let me blow this up in fact, where we're calling out the even child, you know, which is going to be, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., the even direct child of the section, then we can kind of work off of that. And where the word even and the word odd is, then in that position you can also do an expression, right? So you don't have to just put a word, but you can also do an expression, which is pretty cool. So let's do a little experiment so I can help kind of illustrate this a little bit better. I'm going to move this comment mark up here for just a second. And you don't have to follow this along, but I just want you to sort of pay attention so that you can understand what's happening. If I move that up there, okay, what's happening is this FF8A65 number, that color is that orange color. This 80DEEA number down here is a blue color. And so what's happening is that the rule on line 13 here is saying all direct descendants or all direct children of the section tag are going to be orange. Okay, so that's what it's saying. So everything gets orange, but then on line 22, this new rule is going to override some of those, and it's going to say, okay, well, all direct descendants of section, except not all of them, just every other one that is odd, right? So what that does is it's going to be like, you know, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on, right? And so it's going to choose those, right? And so you can see that that is actually being reflected where we've got 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 are blue. Okay, well, there's another way of writing that if you wanted to write it as an expression. And the way that you could do that would be, for odd anyway, would be 2n plus 1. All right, and you'll notice that, see, nothing here changed. And the reason that that didn't change is because that is sort of the equivalent of saying, here, I'm going to make more space in the comment. It's the equivalent of saying for this expression, the way that it would work is sort of like saying, okay, well, let's say that the number that you type here is the same as saying 2n is the same as is equal to 2 times 0 if you start with n being 0. All right, and then that would be the same then of saying 2 times 0 plus 1. And what that does is that creates the starting position. Okay, so type this starting position. And we know that 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 equals 1. All right, so that's going to be your first instance. It's going to be your starting position. And then let's just be really clear about something. I'm going to go ahead and paste this here. So we can start by saying n starts as 0, and then it counts up, and then in increments of 1. Okay, because that's what we're doing here. We're incrementing that up. And so that means that the next time the thing starts to count up again, it's going to say, all right, well, 2 times 1, all right, plus 1. And we know that that's going to be 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is going to equal to 3. All right, so it's just an algebraic expression. That's all it is. And so, and you could keep on doing this. Let's copy this and we'll paste this. And so it's going to jump up again. It's going to increment up, and that means that that would be 5. 2 times 2 plus 1 is 5, right? And then you would do the same thing. Copy this again. It would increment up 1 again, right? And then that would be 7. right? So that would be 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And so it just keeps on going up. And so if you look at the way that this expression works, you can start to think about how this would benefit you. So if you know that it's always going to start in the way that you write it this way, if you know that it's going to start so that, you know, whatever the number is times 0, well, that's always going to be 0 plus 1, then you know that that's always going to at least get, it's going to hit this first one, okay? And then you could count and you could say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, right, is going to be this one. So if I don't want this one to be orange, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 plus another one is going to be, it's going to hit 5. And then I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 plus another one is going to hit number 9. And so that means that if I were to change this from 2n plus 1, I could say 4, all right, then you can see now what I've got is that I've got 1, 5, and 9. And so it's skipping those other ones. That's pretty cool, right? And so that's one of the ways that you can do this without actually having to go and manually apply classes up here. I mean, you could do that. You could do that if you wanted. If this is just making your head spin, then I'm okay with you doing that. You can go up here and you can, you know, put individual classes. You could call this 1, 2, 3, 4. Just remember you can't start something with an actual number, so you'd have to spell it out, or you'd have to do like x1, x2, x3 for classes or something like that, right? Or whatever thing that you would want to call it. You could give these classes, you know, like you could call it blue, orange, blue, orange, right? Whatever. So, but if you don't want to have to know how to name those classes, you can also do this with nth child and algebraic expression, right? It's actually kind of cool. Now, you might go, okay, well, wait, Lee, you said you wanted the whole row to be one color, and now we've got blue and then orange on the first row, and then on the third row we've got blue and orange, and on the you know, and so on and so on. We've got this problem. Well, remember what I told you before. If you look down here as sort of a, we commented this out earlier, but as a reminder, if you were to basically use this plus symbol, it's going to choose the next thing, whatever this designator is. It's going to choose the next thing, and it's going to make it follow whatever rule you give it. And so if I said, okay, well, I also want, let's just copy this. I'm going to copy this. All right. And I'm going to come down here and just paste it. Let's say that I also want the thing that comes right after this. So I'd say plus, and then I could say div because it's a div, right? That would work, right? And you see that that turned blue, right? So it's the one right after it. I could do that. The other thing that I could do is I could also put an asterisk, because what that will indicate is that it will take any element that comes right after. And when I say right after, I don't mean nested within the element, I mean comes right after, right? So if this is currently targeting, let's say this first div, right? It's currently targeting the first child of row, all right? It's currently targeting that first child. Well, then it's saying target the first child plus the next thing that comes right after, which is going to be the second div. All right, it's not talking about what's inside of div. It's not like talking about this H2 or anything, right? It doesn't refer to what's nested. It only talks about the things that are sitting side by side as siblings. Okay, so it's going to say find the next sibling, all right? If it is in fact this asterisk or the wildcard, right? So that's pretty cool, right? That's a way that you can, you know, you can take care of this. Now, the other thing that you could do too is, remember we talked about this we don't want this to have padding. Maybe you do, maybe you want it to have padding, but let's say that you want it to go all the way up to the edge, right? Let's say that that's the way that you would like for this thing to look. If that's the case, then what you could do is you could also go back, and this is even, right? Yeah, it's an even number because it's 1, 2, right? So this would be the second div where this picture is, 3, 4, right? That would be another picture, 5, 6, so it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. So those are even numbers. So if I wanted, I could actually come over here. Let's just move this. I'm going to move that comment mark down, and I'm going to uncomment this expression, or excuse me, this even pseudo selector, and instead of having the background be a color, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to say padding is 0, because that was the problem. All right, that was the thing that was creating that issue, is that the up here above you see actually, yeah, right here, it's saying all direct children of section have a padding of 1em. And so what I want to do is, I don't want to take it off of here because I still want the text to have padding, but over here I can just say all the even ones can have a padding of 0. All right, and then it makes the image go all the way up to the edges, which is pretty cool. All right, so this is probably a good place to end this video, and then for the next one we're going to start talking about how if you wanted to be able to make this entire row, you know, each of these entire rows clickable, like so that they could go to an article or something like that on a different page, then you could do that. Now it's quite a bit more work, so this is a good place to stop. If this actually serves the needs that you might have, cool. If you want to keep going, keep on going.